G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the round 10 stock market video. I tell you what, I don't even know where to start. I've tried to upload this video a couple of times now, but the news keeps filtering through. I'm sure you'll all be aware by the time this video finally gets uploaded that the game between Hawthorn and the Gold Coast is now cancelled, or we think it's going to be cancelled, which means that lots of our buy structures have now been thrown, I wouldn't say into chaos, because the first buy was probably the easiest buy to navigate, but I think some of our trade plans now, we need to reassess them, because it's going to be most likely that all players from Gold Coast and Hawthorn will be available to cover the round 12, 13 and 14 buys. So I've had to rethink a few things, I suppose, on the run, go back to the slides, edit them, because I have color coded the slides this week. What I've done is I've color coded the round 12 buy players names in green, the round 13 players are color coded in blue, and the round 14 players you'll see color coded in red. So that's just a bit of extra assistance, I suppose, when you're looking at making your trades for this week. But what I've then gone and had to do is go all the way back, and any Gold Coast and Hawthorn players, and to be honest, there weren't a heap of them in the stock market video, and I haven't had the time to go back and include any more, but I've now just left their names in black, just to represent that they should be available to cover during the whole buy period, which is just another story in the AFL this year. But I am down in Melbourne, so for anyone down in Melbourne, hope that you're all well, guys. And for anyone that's dealing with any COVID sort of related issues or anything in life at the moment, hope that you're all well. Hopefully the game of SuperCoach can give us some joy, but may even give us a little bit more frustration. I'm not too sure. But look, let's get into it. I've done this intro about 10 times already because different stuff's happened. Originally, I didn't know about the buys, about the change in the fixture with Hawthorn and Gold Coast. But these things happen and you just need to keep rolling with it. But there have been a lot of questions I've got this week about the two bubble boys, and I'm talking about the two blokes up the top there. We know a little bit about Cody Weightman, but not much about James Madden. So I've spent a fair bit of time in this stock market video talking specifically about James Madden. I think there's about an 8-minute discussion in here about him. So check that out. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I've done as best as I can from a Brisbane Lions fan's perspective anyway, to give you all the details that you need to know about him. We see Clary, the pig. I had him as captain, as you know, last week in the middle there, because he's one of these uber premiums that's about to shoot up in price. We've got Anthony Scott, most likely need to get rid of Scotty, unfortunately. He got injured on the weekend, or most likely concussed on the weekend. May miss a week this week, so may not be a desperate trade out, but someone that we need to get rid of before he starts leaking cash. And Tommy Powell, you probably should have got rid of him last week, but in case you didn't, probably this week will be the week to cull him. So let's get straight into it, guys. When I say straight into it, I have been talking for a little bit, but the landscape keeps changing. But what won't change is the fact that we will start with the 500k plus defenders. The man up the top, Blake Hardwick, all of a sudden may have piqued our interest a little bit more given the current circumstances. Now remember, this bloke is a real pod and he will be able to cover from rounds 12, 13 and 14. So that's going to be extremely handy. Look, he's been in great form, takes the kick-ins, and if you're looking for a D6, then you could go worse. I think he's probably a tier 2 defender, but remember, he will be covering for those rounds. So look for him next week. I'll talk about him a little bit more and crunch some of the other numbers. Crispy looks to be enjoying his midfield role in the top 6 defenders for 3-round averages, along with his teammate who's on the next page. Probably the most durable player in the comp, in my opinion. Rory Laird, the best buy here. Most of us have him, but if not, he's the informed defender in the comp over the last 3 rounds. Get him if you can. The Doc, watch him, get him, do what you like. Look, he seems to have certainly established himself now as a genuine option. I'm one that goes past him a little bit, but need to give him a little bit more respect. Christian Salem, a pod, but coming off injury. Bad buy, no for me. Callum Mills, now this is a bloke that you do want to have on your side. You're really paying up now though. Usually better first halves than second halves, but has a massive ceiling, and compare his average to every other bloke on this page and you can easily see that he's numero uno. Richie, besides Mills, he's matching every other defender. I love him as a pod selection, and you can bring him in with a fair bit of confidence, I think. The Seagull, look, he's come back down with a flock this year. Consistent, though, and you know that he'll never give you a stinker. You know, he's 95 plus each and every week, I think. Tommy Stewart, look, scores have fallen off in the last 3 weeks. His 3-round average from rounds 5 to 7 was 125. But from rounds 8 to 10, it's back down to a 92. So that's a 33-point drop, I think it is. So should be a decent get after the buy, but you would be disappointed if you've purchased him recently. And no to Luke Ryan at this stage. He simply isn't giving me any reason to consider him. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Zach Williams, a role reversal, sent back to the defence. Look, he just wasn't cutting it as a midfielder. He's got a low break even, but if you decide to purchase this man, I think that you may be buying a lemon and will most likely be regretting the transaction. Darcy Moore, back to defence now, 2 130 plus scores in the last 3. I couldn't do it personally, but a big pod move if you do decide to go there. Nick Cox, time to go soon, I think. Sard, no way, trap. Cozzy, just again, become interesting, just like Hardwick. Look, you either trade him now or you hold him through the buys. He may be really, really handy cover, I think. Jake Lever, in more teams than Salem, but no for me. Blitzars, look, I'm just throwing him out there as a pod. It could be a pod move after his buy. Look, he may be a handy swing with someone like Laird, but yeah, I wouldn't look to do it, just throwing it out there. Scrimshaw, 101 for a 3-rounder is nice. I'd probably prefer Hardwick, though, if going for a hawker. Jordan Dawson, massive on the weekend, but go Mills or Lloyd. And Razio, time to go. Or, look, you can hold throughout the buys to cover for 13 and 14. But if you look at that 3-round average compared to his break-even, yeah, certainly time for Razio to go. Caleb Daniel, short term, the much better pick than May, getting back to a solid, more consistent role, more consistent form. I wonder if any coaches would be brave enough to trade this bloke back in. I probably wouldn't be, but yeah, not the worst pick at this stage, Daniel. Maynard, been good lately after a terrible start to the season. Jordan Ridley, I think out of any player here, I would have him as my best buy at this stage if you're looking to get a defender in this round. Look, his 3-round average now is up to a 98. Again, that is nothing spectacular, but we have seen 200 plus scores in the last 2 weeks, and I think that season average of 105 will probably be where he'll be at for the rest of the season, I think, going forward. So, yeah, under 500k, 484,000, break even of 79, that is in the green. Ridley, for me, is a buy now. But shop now or hold until his buy, I think. Hooley, great score on the weekend, but I've already got short. Too old for me. Mr. Burns symbol. Aliir, possible pot after his buy. Gone really cold, though. May, don't buy him. Look, I wouldn't call it a fail yet, but yeah, don't sell him. Maybe flip him to Whitfield before round 14 as a pod ranking move, but yeah, you'd need a luxury trade, I think, to be able to do that. I'm very interested in Whitfield. Break even at 107. Look, his season average, only 87 at this stage, but he's definitely working into it. His first ton over the weekend, so things are heading in the right direction. I have the double binoculars on him because I think we need to keep a really, really close eye on him. And after his buy, I think he'll be the perfect upgrade target. Houston, no, his body's just letting him down. Short, no longer consistent. Should call him, Mr. Raffle at this stage. CJ's an interesting one now because I did have him as basically a must-sell, given the fact his break-even's all the way up to 118. But do you now value the fact that he will be covering from rounds 12 to 14? Yeah, it's a really tough decision now. Originally, as I said, yep, definitely trade him out, but now it really does depend on if you need cover during one of those really crucial rounds, and I'm talking about the Blues and the Reds. And Jack Bowes, look, I still think that you've got to trade him. I'm not exactly sure when he comes back, but if it's only going to be one more week, so for example, he's only looking to miss this week, then come back, then you may look to hold him for another 2, but yeah, most likely I think you've still got to look to get rid of him. And the defenders under 250k, really not much to see here, unfortunately. You can see the job security symbol On many of these plays, you've got Murray, Highmore, Murphy and Edwards, who I do have that symbol on. Look, we're hoping that some of these players can come into the side this week. Personally, I'm hoping for Highmore and Murphy. Look, I was shocked that Murphy wasn't included in the best 22 over the weekend. Were they just giving him that one more week just in case? Because I know he's had an issue with concussion already this season previous to his most recent incident. I'm not too sure. I'm hoping that's the case. And all the Collingwood supporters that I've spoken to as well were just as shocked as I was to not see Murphy in the side. So fingers crossed that this fella comes back. I need his cash generation. Lockie Jones, yeah, look, the ship has sailed on him. I wouldn't be bringing him in for 181,000. Look, an average of 59, still in the negatives with that break even, but only looking to go up 29k. And look, that's fantastic if you've already jumped on this bloke, but yeah, you're probably paying too much, I think, at 180. Need to do it last week. Harry Edwards, I mentioned, job security, not too sure there. Parks, he's just going to be a really slow burn. Mansell, he's a bit of a pooey rookie. Don't even think he plays, and when he does, you'll be looking at 30s to 40s. Jackson Pryor, I think that he may need a week off. He's been terrific for us during the last, 5 to 6 weeks, but yeah, he's looking a little bit tired, and I think it's time for another player to come in and get an opportunity. But look for him to come back in at some stage, I think, if he does get the week off this week. And Frederick, yeah, well, Kenny Hinkley, he has killed off Frederick for us. Break even of 71, projected score of 49. Probably not even going to play. Damn you, Kenny. On to the big boys in the midfield, 500k plus. Up the top, Benny Cunnington. Well, you're not going to invest in him a week before his bye. Low break even, but a no from me. Geez, I dig the pig. One of my must-haves pre-season and all season in 2021. I mentioned in my round review that I captained Clary this week, and the great man delivered in spades and held 4 aces, I think, as well. But he's now the number 1 scoring mid in Supercoach, just inch past Jack McRae, and quickly becoming out of reach for non-owners in the short term anyway. But that big 204, that'll be in his price cycle for the next 2, and then after that, he's basically due for his buy. So it's now, if you can manage his round 14 buy, or you've almost got to give up on him until at least after his buy, when he should start to fall down a little bit. But this is all based on how he scores in the next month, obviously. But he certainly slapped you in the face last week if you didn't have him. And the Supercoach gods obviously accepted and appreciated my sacrifice of a big slab of bacon. So thank you again, Piggy. You were a wonderful captain this week. Darcy Parish, all of a sudden, this bloke is ranked 13 for total points after smashing out a 152 over the weekend. Now, let's go back. Rounds 1 to 6 averaged 88 points per game, only raising the bat once with a 112 against St Kilda in round 3, and was priced at 467k. The Anzac Day game comes around, and Darcy plays the best game of his life on one of AFL's biggest stages, a 162, a medal to hang around his neck. It was a massive turning point, and since then, he's gone a 107, 115, 134, and a 152 for a 5-round average of 134. Now, that's number 4 in the comp, and due to this, his price is heading north of 600k. With such a low break even, do you look at him? Will he keep this form up? Now, something I've looked at is the fact that he's running into a tough fixture. He's going to play 4 of the top 8 teams in the next 5. So I think to myself, he's just been beating up on weaker opposition. The 3 top 8 teams he's played against, Sydney, Brisbane and Port, he did not go 100 in any game. His massive scores, they've all been registered against the Pies, Roos and Freo at home. So for me, a huge point of difference, but yeah, at the 600k mark, I'm looking at Ubers with more premium history. Could certainly work out though, and far from a vanilla selection anyway. Ollie Wines maybe is a pot after his buy, but not for me. Tally, just not a fan of the pick, but may have, I suppose, undersold him a little bit this year. Libba, he's a gun, playing in the guts, doing what he does best. There is no way, though, that you take him over Bonds McRae. But it is interesting with Treloar going down, but I think that affects Baz more than anyone at the Dogs. Jolly possibly after his bye, but nowhere near as much value as he was a week or two ago. Pass from me. The cement bag, Christian Petrarca. Look, man, looking at his numbers, three things are really killing him. Firstly, it's consistently finding the ball 30 plus times. He's only done it 4 times this year. Secondly, it's his ability to use the ball well. Efficiency just hasn't been great. And thirdly, it's his free kick against count. He's given away 10 in the last 3 weeks, and his 2 biggest scores of 133, 146, he only gave away the 1 free kick combined in the 2 games. So without a doubt, there are areas for improvement, but until he gets a few of these things right, I don't really know if he's going to be an overly viable selection with the other options that we've got in front of us anyway. Trav Boak may look to have a sneaky look at him after his bye. Probably not for me though. And the Bont, what can I say? This man, he's unstoppable at the moment. And I tell you what, my plan to jump on after a poor score at some stage has not, and more than likely will not, come to fruition, I don't think. His scoring, it's off the charts. He's the ultimate vice-captain, captain choice. And if there was one player I would love to have in my team, it's the Bont by the length of... I was going to make a Matt Shervington reference here, but I bet not uncomfortable visual images. But anyway, the Bont, do you pay up? Just like Clary, it's now or never. If you have the cash to splash, go for it. But this all depends on who else you plan to finish your side with and how much cash you can generate to facilitate those upgrades. You know, if buying Bont means that you won't be able to likely upgrade your side fully, then maybe skip and look for more value. But if you're happy with your future predictions for cash and trades, then just get this man in. You know, scores of 116, 133, 127, 107, 155, 128, and 159 in the last 7 weeks. You know, ownership's up to 29% now. So he is hurting you if you don't have him. So I love this selection. I don't love the price, but one of those players who I think is just a must-have. The man below him, Jack McRae, he's also a must-have in my opinion anyway. Back to form after a quiet last 3 weeks by his standards anyway. Actually at a half-decent price for his expected and potential output as well. A good buy, and as a non-owner, I'm highly considering this man will not let you down. And Tuke Miller, well, things have certainly changed, haven't they? This bloke is now going to be a big talking point, and yes, you probably guessed it right. Lots of people in the comments did. This bloke was going to be my pod selection, so I'm actually a little bit spewing now because I think lots of other people may jump on, given the fact that he will be covering from rounds 12 to 14. He is a pod. Oh man, I might go through the numbers next week, but yeah, I was hoping that not too many people would look to jump on this bloke. Andy Brayshaw, spew on this bloke missed last week because my score of 2,500 plus could have been even better. Probably a little bit greedy, certainly can't complain with that, but hopefully he should be right for this week. Really positive sign for owners. He's been a little bit of a disappointing trade-in for me this year, given the fact that he really stunk it up against Brisbane, where he didn't even get tagged, just had an off game, bit of a change of role, and obviously missing last week. Yeah, that does hurt a little bit, but hopefully he can repay the faith and really bounce back to have a strong end to the season. Titch, all of a sudden he does now come into calculations. I have not been recommending him because his form's just been ordinary for the majority of the season. Now, in the last 3 weeks, he's really shown his ceiling, a couple of nice 140 plus scores, so that's a really positive sign. Maybe after his bye, he can rest up his body a little bit and come home even stronger. So, look, he's definitely an option to consider. He's more of a realistic option now, given the fact that he will be able to cover for those 3 buys, but at the same time, don't get too excited about this pick because he can certainly drop a stinker. A lot of it comes down to his contested possession rate. Again, that was up a little bit on the weekend. The week before, it was really, really low. So that will go a long way to determining how Mitchell will score. Yeah, don't love the pick, but given the fact he can cover for those buys, I think he could actually now be a solid type of selection. Joel Selwood, too old, got the Mr. Burns symbol on him there. Sam Walsh, absolutely love this guy. I tell you what, he's just a phenomenal player. Halfway through the second quarter on the weekend, this bloke was on 94 points. I mentioned this in my round video. Apart from Piggy's performance, it is the best half of football that you will see. And talk about the complete performance. You know, contested possessions, tackles, hit the scoreboard. But then he spends 7.5 minutes on the bench in that second quarter. And within 20 seconds of coming back onto the ground, gets a contested handball. I thought, brilliant, here we go. But then nothing worked for poor old Sammy in the second half. Cole Hardingen's elbow, well, that wasn't great, was it? A few free kicks against in a row, which really hurt him. Oh, man, what could have been? There was a holding the ball decision, a high tackle, I think even a holding the man. And you just saw his score actually getting lower and lower. You know, I was pegging this for about a 170 type performance. But in the end, you know, Cousins played a little bit tighter on him in that second half. Couldn't really go near it. And unfortunately, it was only about a 17-point second half for Sam Walsh. But he did show us what he's capable of in the first half. And if he can put a 4-quarter performance together, yeah, geez, this guy could easily give you a 170 to 200 score by the end of the season. So fingers crossed, Sammy Walsh gets back to that first half form from last week. Huey McCluggage spent a fair bit of time talking about him in last week's stock market video, as well as a Q&A session with George, so I won't repeat myself there. Still feel pretty much the same, but unfortunately he has now gone over 600k. The same as JL, been banging on about this bloke for weeks on end. Now he's probably at a price where you may even have to look for other options, but absolutely love him as a pick. You're just really paying up for him now. Jack Steele. So, unlike Lions, there is a fair bit of value in this fella. Look, if he can get back to some of that early season form where he was pumping out some 125s, even a 150 back then this could be a terrific buy at the price. His fixture does really open up in the next month. I think it's extremely friendly, and if he is going to get back to that early season form, I think that it's going to start this week. Unfortunately for myself, he does have a bit of a tricky buy, but in saying that, if I can make some other plans, then he could be a viable option to come into my side. I'd much rather, you know, a Lions, a McRae, a Bont, and a couple of these type of players, but it's all about the price with Jack Steele, and I think that for what he can produce, there certainly is some value there. The Tarantula, 544,900. He's actually been a really good starting pick, and he'll also be really good cover, particularly during that tricky round 13 buy, as well as round 14. Guthrie, extremely unfortunate if you did bring this bloke in, particularly last week. He was just scoring like an absolute house on fire, but as we know, he is certainly under an injury cloud. Managed to play out the rest of the game, albeit under a little bit of duress, and I think they did just park him in the forward line to avoid some of that contact. So, look, I'm not sure if he does miss this week, or else he may play through and then just have a rest during the bye. Players are different when it comes to these type of things. Some can play through it, others may need to have a bit of a layoff. So, hopefully for Guthrie owners, he can just have a quick rest and then get back to that great form. Super unlucky though, if you do have him. Nat Fife, you know how I feel about him. Always a little bit worried about his durability. But when you're looking at him after the buys, that durability risk does decrease given the fact that he doesn't need to get through as many games. So certainly keep a look at him maybe after his buy. Zeret, this guy just gets really ripped off, I think, by champion data at times. Found a heap of the ball over the weekend, and I was actually watching the game as well as the live scores, and there was a period there where he was only given 4 points or awarded 4 points for 3 effective possessions, and that was a kick and 2 handballs. I just couldn't believe it, but yeah, I'm not sure what else he has to do. I think a lot of it does come down to his lack of contested possessions at times, but still, when you're getting the uncontested ball and using it as well as Zeret did on the weekend, you should be rewarded a little bit more for your efforts, I think. So Zeret, yeah, extremely disappointed that he didn't manage to get a 130 plus score, because I think he deserved it, but certainly did bounce back after his terrible week before. And Mitch Duncan, I think he's injured. Yeah, never really liked the pick. Bad luck though for Mitch. On to the mids, 250 to 500k. As usual, I'm not really a fan of any of these selections that you'll see on the screen, but I'll talk about a few of them very, very quickly. Cal Ward, you may look at him as a pod selection to bring into your side after he has his bye to cover for the next two. I probably wouldn't advise it though. Baz, he may be benefited slightly by the fact that Adam Treloar is unavailable in the short term. Don't know exactly how long he's out, but Smith will look to step up into that role, I think, and spend a lot more time on the inside, which is obviously beneficial for his scoring. Chera, I do have him as the best buy. I think he's probably a better option than Baz at the moment. You look at that average, 86 for Baz, 89 on the season for Chera. But keep in mind also that Chera's average is injury affected. So you look at that 3-round average of 68, that's the reason. Break even of 53, I think that's really achievable from Chera. Hasn't been spending a heap of time in the middle, attending a large percentage of CBAs, which is of slight concern. But I think at the same time, if you're looking for a value pick, this is probably the guy that you go with this week. Jai Simpkin, I've got the trap on him. We've seen a terrific game from him, was it 1 or 2 weeks ago? But last week, just, right back down to what he's been doing for the majority of the season. Cripper, he's been a trap. You probably just keep on to him at this stage, maybe flip him before his bye. McNeil, I think he's probably on the chopping block now, ready to go. McGrath, I think he's a pod, but I wouldn't be looking to go there myself. At 484k, I'd look to go Chera personally. Tom Green, I think he's a little bit of a trap. Look, I haven't watched a heap of GWS football in the last month, but at that price, 440k, I just think that you're spending up too much and there's not enough value there. Won't be a keeper either. Now, James Jordan, lots of arguments whether or not to keep him, hold him through the buys, or look to trade him out. Now, this is a tough decision, and I think it really is team dependent. I'm looking to possibly make a move on him this week. Look, the issue for me is his low time on ground from last week. Is that going to be something that we need to be worried about moving forward? I think Vine is looking to get back in soon. It's a tough one, because at the same time, you think to yourself, well, if I do keep on to him, he may lose a little bit of cash, but he will be great cover. The issue is, if he drops a 50-odd type score this week, the week after, he almost becomes a must-trade, because lots of that cash that he's made will start to diminish. So it is very team-dependent on James Jordan. There are arguments either way, I think, for JJ. Tommy Powell, I don't think there are many arguments to actually keep this fella now. You do have to sell him. He has made a lot of money, about 200k on his starting price, give or take a few dollars, but with a break-even of 115, a 3-round average of 56, this is why I traded him last week, because if he had have put out another stinker, and do we call last week's score a stinker? It's not terrible, but it certainly wasn't great when he had a break-even above 100 last week. So, he almost becomes a must-trade for me. You've got to sell Tommy Powell. And Adam Treloar, look, this is why I'm never interested in this fella. It's because of his durability, a really talented type player, more for fantasy rather than SuperCoach, I think, because he just doesn't use the ball overly well. But with a break-even of 157, now looking to lose 31k, he's injured, a bit of a disaster if you are an owner at this stage. On to the midfielders under 250k, you certainly do not look to invest here this week. Last week, if you had jumped on RCD at his inflated price, you'd probably be left a little bit disappointed. Still has a negative break-even of 10. If he can play the next 2 to 4 weeks, it may work out okay, but a little bit disappointing from RCD over the weekend. Ship has certainly sailed, but if he does score 64, that's his projected for this week, he will rise over 32k. Tanner Bruin, a bit of a pooey rookie. Do you trade him? Do you hold him? just terrible to own someone like this during the buys. Just probably get rid of him if you do need a warmer body. Ryan Burns actually scored really well over the weekend. So did we get it wrong last week? Could we have jumped on Burns as compared to RCD? Possibly, because he can really hold his head high over his performance over the weekend. You'd have to think that he's got pretty decent job security in the short term after that. Hugo Ralphsmith, do not look to go there. He's got an average of 28. His break even is 18. So if he goes what he's been going over the last couple, he only rises about 4.5k. So probably, does he play this week? I'm not too sure, but just pretty irrelevant. Don't look to select him. Sam Berry, I think you actually hold this bloke. I did trade him out a couple of weeks ago now, but he has looked okay in the last couple. 3-round average of 53, break even 25. So if he can go around the 50 mark again, he'll go up around 10k. So I'd be holding Sam Berry up until his buy. And Charlie Lazaro, I suppose as long as he's playing, he could be half decent coverage during the buys. But again, you're probably only getting a bonus of 30 to 40 points if he does play. Probably on the chopping block. Just hasn't been a good rookie selection, unfortunately. Now I'm going to fly through the rucks this week because, as usual, there's not much to see here. Just go straight down the bottom. Max Gawn, Brodie Grundy, they are the two must-have ruckmen. You will notice I have just thrown a few names out here that have that DPP swing. You got Treacy, Campbell, the Peanut, Thilthorpe and Lobb, so you might want to look to do something crazy there. I certainly wouldn't advise it, but again, just throwing some names out there. Sweet up the top, the ship has already sailed there, even though he's got a negative break even of 9. I think English even comes back into the side this week, or there's a possibility that he returns. Matty Flynn, I think we certainly hold him. Look, I do have the chopping block symbol on there, but with the question mark, I think if you're really desperate, then you can get rid of him. But my plan is to hold him for as long as I can and then swap him to Reeves if or when he gets on the bubble. Nick Nat, he's in blue there, so a bit of a different buy. You only got Sweet and Nick Nat on this list that are in the blue with around 13 buy. But here's a pod. Do you look to do something crazy and trade him in for 1 to 3 weeks? Yeah, could be a possibility. But again, a very, very dangerous move. Tom Hickey, he's been a pod for the season, but a fantastic pod. If you started with him, you'd be really, really happy with that decision. And as I mentioned before, Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy, just get these blokes in whenever you can. Grundy now has the higher season average, one more than Max Gawn. It'll be really interesting to see who ends the season with the higher average. Who are you betting on? I'm probably... Look, it's hard to still go past Gawn, I think. Onto the forwards, 500k plus. As you can see, there is no red here. Round 14 is a pretty friendly buy for the premium forwards. You've got Dane Zorko up the top. I brought him last week. Look, I hadn't recommended him all year, but at the end of the day, he was the best out of some ordinary options, I suppose you'd say. But look at that 3-round average, 121, had a 140 the week before, then 117 over the weekend. That was my first week, obviously, as an owner, and really, really happy with that. So it's got that mid-forward status, which always comes in handy also. Lachie Neale is returning probably in 3 to 4 weeks. Does that affect him? I think it does a little bit, but for the time being, I still think that he's going to continue to be one of the best scoring forwards that we've got. Josh Dunkley, obviously, you'd love to have him, but not a chance. Tommy Hawkins, you could look to bring him in after his bye as a bit of a sneaky option to cover for the rest of the rounds, but look, the issue is that we really don't need to cover for our forwards after, probably round 12, to be honest, because you haven't got too many players that are in the red. So if you've got some red up there, that's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think. Jack Zeeble, well, Aaron Hall, I think, is affecting his scoring a little bit, but he'll still continue to be one of the best averaging forwards from now on, I think, still. Zach Butters, not sure when he returns. I don't think he can really plan for him now because his time frame is just too far away, I think, at this stage. And Danger, I'm certainly planning for him some stage after his bye. That's what all the talk's about. He'll be returning after his bye. So you can see that big break even there, 197. You'd certainly want to wait a week or two ideally, but even after 1 week, depending on what he scores, you could even look to get him in then. Onto the forwards, 250 to 500k. Jesse Hogan, too injury prone for me, out for a couple of weeks as it is. Isaac Heaney, I can see why you're looking there. We've had a number of conversations about Heaney over the last couple of weeks, even with a low break even of 11, just too risky for mine. Taron Thomas, just throwing his name out there as a pod. I know that most people already have Zeeble, a few people have Hall, so another North player, I suppose, just to add to that list. When I say add to that list, I'm not saying bring him in, but just a pod to throw out there. Jimmy Rowe, keep this bloke until the buys. He's given us a couple of 80s and then another 70 over the weekend. Still looking to make some cash. Low break even of 24. Just the perfect player to hold up until round 14, then flip him then. Dev Robinson, break even of 39. Look, I really like Robertson. I think he's a terrific player. The more experience and the more responsibility, opportunity that he gets in his preferred role, which is that inside midfield role, then the better he'll get. I think one day he can be a terrific scorer, but at this stage, yeah, I just don't think he's going to be getting enough of an opportunity with blokes like Matheson in there. Neil will be returning in about a month. Yeah, probably long-term prospects aren't great for him on the chopping block when you can, I think. Same as Bergman on the chopping block time. Jones, again, great job security, but that break even and that average getting pretty close. Bailey Dale, this bloke was absolutely phenomenal over the weekend. Now, I've actually got the buy now symbol on him because if you look at someone like a Dusty, who have also got the buy now symbol on, I think that Dale at this stage looks like the better pick short term. Now, there's been a little bit of talk that Dusty may be injured, playing with a bit of a foot injury. We knew this was the case a few weeks ago, but the week before last, when he went above the ton, I thought, well, he's obviously over that. But then there's been a little bit of talk again about this recently. So has it flared up? Was it never right and he just played really well and managed to get through the pain with his 100-plus score? These are all questions that I'm really not sure on. But at this stage, I still do have the buy now symbol on him just because of his price, and I don't rate a heap of the other options that we can be selecting in our forwards this year. Nick Hind, again, scored pretty well over the weekend and basically did exactly what we expected him to do, and that was go a mid-90 type score. So that's what you expect from Nick Hind for the rest of the year. Is there enough value in him at 475 for that 95 average? Completely up to you, I think. But I'm a fan of the Hind pick. If I didn't have someone like a Dusty, and if I had another spot up my sleeve that I wasn't saving for danger, then I'd be pretty happy to bring this bloke into my own side. Shai Bolton, not sure if he's back this week. If he is, that'll be great news for current owners because he's still looking to go up in price with that low break even of 68. Do you look to bring him in? Oh, I don't know. It's risky, isn't it? Because he's missed 3 weeks of footy. We don't know if he's going to come back a little bit rusty. We don't know exactly what role he's going to be playing, given the fact that the Tigers will have a few other blokes that are back in their midfield. So, yeah, tough one. I'd probably even just wait 1 more week for a little bit more insurance on role and form from Bolton. Wingard, I've always got the trap symbol on him, but you may be interested given the fact that he can cover a few of these buys, but certainly not for me. And Aaron Hall, I still think he is a buy now. I'm not going to go again into great detail about Hall because all you need to know is the fact that he's got a terrific role this year. He's going to score well each week. I peg him for at least 100 average. I'm hoping 105 to 110. He has been affecting Zeeble, as I did mention before, but at the same time, you know what the risks are. It's his durability. So consistency, I think, is okay now with Hall. We have seen a consistent patch of football in his new role in the defensive line, but durability we can never guarantee. So if you're willing to take the risk and you don't have other picks such as your Heaney's up there, for example, then I think you can still take the chance and select Aaron Hall for under 500k. And Chad Warner, 315,900, break even of 71. Look, it's still under his season average, but if you look at his 3-round average, that's under 60. So it is certainly time to look to have him on the chopping block. But again, he's not going to leak a heap of cash, maybe 5-10 grand here and there. But overall, I still think he can be a reliable scorer for us up until that round 14 bye. Yeah, at the same stage though, in my personal situation, most likely looking to move him on. Jumbo Impey has now become a really important player during rounds 12 to 14. He'll be able to cover well during the buys. And remember, round 12 was a little bit tricky in our forward line. So this is a little bit of a blessing here, I think, with Jumbo Impey. Archie Perkins, I think he's now on the chopping block. If you look at that break even, it is in the red. 3-round average of 43. Time to get rid of Archie. Tom McDonald, geez, he's been pretty good this year, hasn't he? 3-round average of 97, only the 92 for the season average, but for our forward lines, that's okay. 469,000, yeah, I'd probably go somewhere else though. Joey Danaher, is he going to be a keeper? Probably not at this stage when you got players like Dangerfield that are returning to our forward lines, but I'd certainly keep him, like I said last week, right up until his buys, and then either trade, upgrade, or reassess then. Scotty, I think you got to sell him. That break even is now up to 93. Not sure if he plays this week, but if he does, he's going down, down, down very quickly. So unless you want to keep on to him for another couple of weeks, yeah, I'll just get rid of him because he's certainly going to leak cash. Steel Sidebottom, he's been a really disappointing premium this year. 481,000. You may look to go him after his buy, but there's nothing to suggest at this stage that you really need to do anything with a Steel Sidebottom in regards to getting him into your side. Tex, well, he bounced back over the weekend, but look at that 3-round average, 57. The break-even's 99, so look, that may be achievable, but again, we don't even really know what's going to be happening with this game. Jack Darling, I think he's a trap. Kicked 5 goals in a quarter the other week, but I don't think we're going to see a heap from him this year. Tommy Atkins, I think he's now on the chopping block. He's not going to be a keeper. Has a nice buy though, so that may change your opinion on what to do with him, but certainly a candidate to trade out of your side, I think. Jeremy Cameron, maybe take a look at him after the buy, but he's a classic roller coaster type pick. Toby Green, injured at the moment. That is no good for owners. And Rowan Marshall, do not look to go anywhere near this bloke. Just too injury prone. Maybe look at him in 2022. And 11 with the forwards under 250k. I think this is a good place to end this week because we do have the 2 most popular bubble boys available in this line. So the 2 men we're obviously talking about are Cody Weightman and James Madden. And for lots of coaches, it is going to be a choice between these 2 players. Look, there is a chance that you could double downgrade, but there is a little bit of risk attached to doing that, I think, mainly dependent on what your coverage is like in your forward lines. But let's have a chat about these 2 blokes. The man up the top, Weightman, he will set you back 50k more than the Madden selection. He's 173,700. Got a really impressive average over his first couple of games of 87. Really low break even, negative 70. And if he can hit a projected score of 54, which is 33 points below his average for the season so far, he will rise around 55k. So short term, he'll be looking to rise 100k pretty quickly. What do I like about this pick? Well, he was an early draft pick, a really talented type of youngster. The Dogs were looking for a small forward in that draft. He's a really exciting type player, good below his knees, can make something happen with the ball, and also he's really good above his head as well. Loves a celebration, has hit the scoreboard as well. I think it's 5 goals in the first 2 weeks, so he's really doing his job at the moment. And I did hear an interview or watch an interview with him, and he said that his role is not obviously just about hitting the scoreboard, but it's about that manic pressure, and I think that he has been providing that. So he's got a few strings to his bow, Weightman. As I said, an exciting type player, and given the fact that the Dogs are flying at the moment, and in my opinion, he's probably their most dangerous small forward, I just can't see him leaving that side anytime soon. So if we talk about job security, I think Weightman has really solid job security, and that's what we need, particularly with the upcoming buys. So how are you in your forward line during that round 13 buy? You're probably okay, but how are you in your midfield? That makes things difficult as well. But the other thing you'll notice is that both of these blokes, Weightman and Madden, are in blue. So when you're taking into account the buy, it doesn't really matter because both of them do share that round 13 buy. So there is a fair bit to like about the Weightman selection apart from the price. Now, the risk that we run if we do select Weightman is that if he does drop a stinker, so I'm talking like a 35 to 40 type score, then that cash gen will really halt. And that's not what we want, because we want to look to be probably flipping this bloke in about 5 weeks, maybe a week or two after the buys. And if he does drop that stinker, then he may only get to 260 to 275k. So that's not going to be ideal. We want to make more than 100k if possible off Weightman. So a lot of this will depend on how he goes in the next few weeks, but I've got a fair bit of confidence that Weightman can average probably 65 plus from here on out, and that should be enough given the fact he'll have that big score in his system to get him around that 300k mark. So Cody Weightman, I think, is an okay buy this week. That's why I've got the buy now symbol on him. Now let's talk about Jimmy Madden. Now, even as a keen Lions man, this is a pick that's really hard to gauge. Firstly, we'll talk a little bit about him. He's an Irish lad that was an ex-Gaelic gun, came from the same club as the great Jimmy Steins. He's tried to base his game off his Irish AFL hero, which was Conor McKenna. And can this man run? He holds a record for the 20-metre sprint at the Combine and actually makes Charlie Cameron look slow, this fella. It's his 3rd year at the club now, and after being really raw and more of a project-type player, he's learnt the systems and structures required, and even though he's got a bit of an awkward kicking style, I think his disposal is now at the level. He's a determined, a happy, jovial type fella, really well liked around the club. And I think he's got a bright future. And don't just take it from me. Lee Matthews caught him after the game, complimented him about his performance, and said that he thinks he'll play a lot of senior footy in the years to come. And we all know when Lethal speaks, we listen up. So what is there to like about this pick? Well, firstly, he comes at a cheaper price, 50k cheaper than Weightman, as we mentioned before, has really handy DPP status, so can be selected as a defender, can be selected as a forward. And let's be honest, there aren't too many other options that we've got this week. So his first match didn't set the world on fire, but a solid first game nonetheless. Went out of the side though straight away. That's not great, but was called upon last week with the Leicester and Gardner injuries. Now, they're both third tall types. Gardner in particular can play big or small, and as I've said before, criminally underrated outside of Brisbane. They could have gone with a tall such as Bellenden to come in for these blokes, but they decided to go small with Madden, particularly against Richmond's small forward line. So in part, I think Madden's inclusion was largely due to the matchups on the night. I did talk about Madden in my preseason Lions team review and basically said we won't see him round 1, but if we get a couple of injuries and we want to inject something different into the side, get a bit more run and carry, a bit more speed in there, then Madden could debut. So that's obviously come to fruition, and we have a decision on our hands. Now, we'll talk about Friday night. He played really well, a huge first quarter from Jimmy, and was actually the leading contested possession winner after the first quarter with 6. That's hugely impressive, particularly from a defender. Look, he did slow down possession-wise after that first quarter with a total of 13 for the game, but did also put the boosters on to break away from his opponent, slot a really nice goal, and didn't the boys get around him? You love when a player kicks their first goal. Look, he used the ball well. I think it was 84% efficiency, had 2 contested marks thrown in there, as well as 8 intercepts. And remember, he did do this against the Tigers, who were certainly no mugs, even with some of their stars missing. So, in summary, a lot to like about his game, and I'm really excited as a Lions supporter. However, the big question here is all about his job security moving forward. You know, how many games are we going to get into him? It's almost an impossible question to answer. And, you know, the channel isn't SuperCoach with Chris Fagan or SuperCoach with CF, but let's look at it logically. Now, firstly, as I previously mentioned, it will be a week-to-week proposition, I think, based on potential matchups. If the opposition team are stacked for key tools, he may lose his spot. So we'll look at the fixture that's coming up. Let me have a look. So we've got GWS, Melbourne, the bye, North, and Geelong. So GWS, well, they'll have Flynn, Himmelberg, Finlayson, possibly Sproul. So they've got pretty nice stock of tall forwards there. Melbourne, so you've got Wiedemann, T-Mac, Jackson. North, probably just Larkey. Geelong, what do you got? The Tomahawk, Cameron, Radigalia possibly, so could go tall there. So yeah, look, GWS, Melbourne and Geelong all have some key tools that I think could be dangerous. I don't think that's fantastic for Jimmy. Yeah, again, this is all off what you think as well. You know, are GWS going to go with a really tall forward line, try to stretch the Brisbane defence with Froggy and Dizzy out? Yeah, it's a tough one to work out. Well, what's his competition as well for spots? You got Ainsworth, who's probably 1 week away. Froggy Lester, he's a couple of weeks away, I think. Even got Cockatoo, got a different skill set, but has spent some time at halfback in the Rezzies. And you got other blokes like Kitty Coleman, Tom Berry that could come in if you go with one less defender. They're pretty versatile, those sort of blokes. So it's really, really tough looking forward to see if Madden can keep his spot short term. Look, I think Jackson Pryor needs a week off. He's been pretty solid for Brisbane over the last 6 or so weeks, but I can't really see Madden coming out of this side, particularly after his performance. Fagan really does like to reward those blokes that do have a really nice game and keep them in the side. He does offer us a lot of speed down back. The other thing that I suppose I was a little bit concerned about when I was watching an interview with Jimmy Madden after the game was the fact, and look, I don't know if you're concerned about this. Look, you're really happy from a supporter's, I suppose, point of view, but he did mention a couple of times that when he did go in for those intercepts, he was purely relying on the voice of Harris Andrews behind him. Now, does this mean that he doesn't have as much natural instinct for the game that you really need down there in the defensive lines? It may be possible. Then again, I know that all teams rely on this sort of stuff. You always have a general down back, and Andrews is certainly our main man in the back line that's the communicator down there, the organiser. So you certainly expect him to be talking a lot to a second game player like a Jimmy Madden, but does Jimmy rely on that a little bit too much? Help from his teammates around him without being know whether or not to make particular decisions? Yeah, possibly. That could be a little bit of a concern. But look, the main question is, do you bring this bloke into your side or not? Well, a lot of it depends just with Weightman if you have decent bench coverage. So, for example, if you're running with a Jimmy Rowe still on your bench and you don't have him on field, you can bring Madden into your side without too many worries whatsoever, I think. Now, I expect him to certainly play games during the year. I think that he will be included in the side this week. But then moving forward, yeah, it is a little bit of a guessing game. And as I said before, a week-to-week proposition. So if you're looking for one of Weightman or Madden, which one do you go with? If you're looking for job security, it is certainly Weightman. But if you're looking for value and someone that you can maybe switch between two lines, your defense and your forward, then I think that it could be Madden. But don't be expecting Madden to be playing large chunks of games in a row. Look, it's certainly a possibility, but remember, we do have a few blokes to come back into that defensive line, and we are pretty solid back there already because Rich isn't coming out. Geez, do you swap him with a Birchall? It's maybe a possibility if you want to inject that pace into the side, but you know, you've got your Adams, your Andrews. Did I mention Rich? You got Starsvich back there. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for Madden to keep his spot long term. But I think if you are looking for a trade in at a cheap price this week, then Jimmy Madden is certainly an option. So, again, I know that I don't have all the answers, but that's probably the best that I can do for you in regards to Mads. Sproul, you've got there, tall forward. Job security, I'm not too sure about him. No way that you jump on any of these other blokes. You just look at one of the top two options there. Caleb Poulter, still can't get it right. He's been absolutely phenomenal for us. Actually hit 3 figures for a score in Dream Team over the weekend. Unfortunately, it didn't translate to his SuperCoach score, but still certainly cannot complain with what this man is producing. His job security, I think, is absolutely rock solid at this stage, and should make us enough cash to even flip him before the buys. But if you're in a position where you can even keep onto this bloke for a little bit longer, even as coverage, I doubt whether many of us can do that for the rest of the season. But if you are in that lucky position, then I think he'll be the perfect bloke that you can keep for the whole season and just flip between your midfield and your forwards. But as I said, I certainly won't be in that position myself. But yeah, super impressed from Poulter, and you certainly can't get him now. Obviously, the ship has sailed, but I think most of us have already got him in the sides. Owies, Owies, again like Poulter, I just cannot get this one right, but he's actually been really impressive and probably performed a little bit better than what I thought he would. Job security, like Poulter, I think he's really rock solid at the moment. If he hits a score of 50, he'll go up 21k. Wilson is on the bubble, but yeah, there's no way that you go him over a Madden or a Weightman type. McCreary is injured, so possibly may need to trade that bloke out. Waterman, worried about his job security. Geez, it would have been nice for him to get the role that we wanted him to get, or we were promised that he'd get. But yeah, he was pretty much parked up in the forward line. Didn't see any midfield minutes. Does he play this week? I'm hoping so. But look, that cash generation, he's going to be a really slow burn. If he goes around 53, his break-even's 25. He'll only be going up about 12k. So extremely slow burn, but we just want to get games into him at this stage. Baylor Williams, just as a ruck forward option. The ship has sailed, I think, already on him. You don't look to buy. But look, if you're desperate for some sort of a ruck forward swing, someone that may be playing during the buys, then he could be an option. Ruckman, I think you've got to sell him because I can't see him coming into the side anytime soon. So for me, Ruckman, you've just got to probably get rid of a dead rookie during the buys. And Ollie Henry, he has the double poo symbol. Cannot believe this. If he goes 16, oh man, he's going to go down in price. So this could be the first bloke that we ever see under 100k. So that's it for this week, guys. I know it was a lot to take in. Look, I don't know what's going to happen in regards to the fixtures in the next 24 to 48 hours, but my advice would be is just to keep your ears open, listen out for any news that's coming out of the AFL. I'm sure that the Herald Sun will be putting some tweets out. What is definitely confirmed is the fact that it is best 18 for this round. What I'm not quite sure about is what's going to happen in regards to any extra trades. I don't think that we'll get them. The other thing that's actually come through as well while I've been doing the video is that we're not too sure what's going to be happening with the Adelaide-Richmond game. It's still most likely going to go ahead, but we're not sure where it's going to be played. So a lot of things still to play out during this round, but I know that my trade plans, yeah, I'm going to rethink them, I suppose, and try to take this news in. All of a sudden, Hawthorn and Gold Coast players could be very, very attractive trade-in options next week. But as I said, it's hard to say anymore at this stage because we just need to hear exactly what's going to be happening, not only in regards to the AFL rounds, but for all of us here on this channel, what's going to be happening with SuperCoach over the bye periods. It may be completely put out of whack, and maybe the players that we expected to be having the bye in round 13, 14 may not be having those buys. Yeah, who knows? So if you're someone that's planned out your buys really, really carefully, you may be a little bit frustrated at this point. But if you're someone that was struggling, particularly with either round 13 or 14 buys, then this may be some pretty positive news for you. But we'll see how it goes, guys. I can't even speak now. That means that I better let you there. Let you go. Oh my goodness. Let you go there. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Lot to take in. Bye.